Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Between the Lines. I'm John Lofton here with you guys today. Very happy to be with you. We're going to have a good show today. Already starting off the day with a few technical difficulties, but that's why the show still is in beta. And, but yeah, I think it's just one of those things. We're going to have some ups and downs and all that, but I am just happy to be starting right at 4 o'clock today. So hopefully you guys can hear me well and everything's going good. One of my ear monitors appears to be malfunctioning at the moment, but I think we'll make do. But yeah, I'm just gonna make sure some stuff's muted and disabled here. Hopefully you guys aren't hearing like an echo or anything weird like that. Just gonna make sure a couple things are done before that. All right, we should be good and ready to rock and roll. So, all right. Now, whoa. So we see that's what we don't want to do. I thought I was hearing echo, but I like this part. All right, cool. All right, no big deal. We're ready to roll. I know it was like a terrible intro. That's like my worst intro ever. All right. I had a few things with the new broadcast software. They had an update, and as you know, with updates, things happen. And started out thinking it was just my text, and there's only so much I can test before I actually go live. So thanks for sticking with me. For all the beta people who've been watching, appreciate it. I can't wait for this thing to go live. I feel like I'm getting like this close. Oh, by the way, I'm doing very well after my kidney transplant. I'm very excited to feel better. I'm not so backed up in my gut, if you know what I mean. Turns out coffee is amazing at helping with those sort of things. But yeah, I'm feeling good. So I want to thank you again for all the thoughts and prayers. Go back and watch my last 2 videos for Between the Lines, and you'll get to see those. I have a lot more energy today. I feel good, like really good. It's amazing. The doctors tell me my kidneys are actually functioning at like 77% now, which is like normal pretty much. So I'm very happy, very, very happy about all that. So, all right, so let's dig into today's show here. We'll have a few things to kind of talk about. So, why can't independents from, like, and I'm referring mostly today with U.S. politics. Why can't U.S. candidates win election? And I've got my own hypothesis. I'm sure a lot of you do too, and a lot of them are probably pretty valid. I found, some interesting stuff that I honestly didn't know about. Previously. So, yeah, it's just kind of one of those things here. And but I don't know. Let's kind of dig into this a little bit. So I found some interesting research and a lot of that. And I guess like as many of you know with the show, I typically start out with a story. And a lot of things kind of surprised me about kind of how this like U.S. politics typically works and all of that. So, yeah, we're just going to kind of dig into a lot of that and try to dissect some of it. Yeah, pretty much just kind of go from there. But basically, here's what I know. When I was a kid, I really didn't see political parties. Growing up, I really didn't care a whole lot about politics either. And, yeah, it just wasn't all that important, right? Most kids don't think about politics. They don't think about the new world. There are some that do, and to those kids, congrats. That's good. You should care about the world around you and how our government works and what we pay to the government so that essential services can be covered, and then what's not necessary for the government to control or have funding for. Obviously, I think most people agree. Our military should be funded because we have adversaries. There are people who would like nothing more than the U.S. to not exist in this country. Okay. That seems like a nonpartisan issue, but it kind of is, because Republicans love bolstering our defense budget. They just like spending money on it. That's just the fact truth. Democrats do too, when it suits certain situations. And that's kind of where we start doing it. And it really kind of boils down to money and control and what's fair, what's not. And there's a lot of things at play. most of you think like how something gets funded is usually because of a special interest group, right? So Republicans typically are known by getting funded by the NRA, right? NRA really is supportive of the Second Amendment and people's right to bear arms, and for the government to not impede that right. Now, there are Republicans and Democrats alike who all agree that some gun control is necessary to try to keep guns out of dangerous people's hands. And those are sort of things like we all kind of get on board with. But where does that line stop? Where do we stop this, like, okay, this is okay, but this isn't? And then does it ever? But it's always evolving, right? We always see laws being adapted and changed over time. We see we see different things that kind of make us question a lot of I don't know. We see things and then we react. We're very much a reaction sort of policy sort of thing. Kind of what's happening this week. There's been a lot of mass shootings going on. I just heard about a middle school young girl brought in and shot 3 people. Like, that's terrible. Could that have been prevented? Well, actually, yeah, maybe. I'm hypothesizing in generalities here. Obviously, I don't know that family situation or what all happened there, but I will say that, you know, a logical thing is why didn't the parents keep the guns away from the kids, right? If a responsible gun owner knows that you should keep your guns away from your kids, especially if they might have a tendency to act out, because it's really easy to point a gun and pull the trigger, right? But that's not okay. And we all agree it's not okay. But was there something in place that the government could have done to prevent that young girl from acting that destructive act of violence? Just to put it mildly. Truth is, probably not. I mean, there's warning signs with anything, and of course you have mandatory reporting and stuff like that, which if something got missed there, then sure. But a lot of these cases, it's so specific to the situation that when you make a law that applies to a large group of people, if not everybody, and it's supposed to apply to everybody equally, but there's not really a good fix for it. It's just not. And so that's kind of where my idea of, you know, I'm all for background checks. I'm all for federally done background checks, and I don't care where you get your gun from. You know, if you're a convicted felon who's already shown that you do not possess the ability to maintain safety with the firearm, especially if you've been convicted of a violent crime, you're going to have to work really hard to show the general public that you are able to responsibly handle a gun. I'm not sure if I'm supportive of felons' right to not have guns for life. I think it really is a decision. Some people are career-long criminals who should never have guns, never even think about it. Some did something really dumb at 19 and 20 and got a felony. Makes them ineligible to vote in a lot of cases. However, we are doing voter restore rights across the country. But at the same time, getting a gun after being a convicted felon is very difficult. Now, by the time that person is, let's say, 50, they're not the same person they were when they were 19. Now, I'm not saying we take it away for half the person's expected life, but I mean, you have to believe that maybe that person might have changed. But I think there's certain standards that have to be met, and there's ways to quantify that. You can honestly get a good feel for a person, but who's making that decision to, okay, yep, you've shown us enough that you can be responsible. We will restore your ability to own a firearm. Who gets to make that? Is it a judge? Is it a test? Is it a psychologist or psychiatrist that says, yep, I don't think this person can do this? Who does that? Is it a governor? Because in Iowa, like, to get your voter rights restored, previously it was you actually had to write a letter to the governor's office or some such and try to get your voting rights back. And then the governor and her staff, in our case, would have been responsible to restore those rights. And it kind of ties into this because I don't, I am certainly not a Democrat when it comes to gun rights. I do typically lean towards, I would rather see more people have the freedom to own a firearm and do it responsibly. Now, when I first handled a firearm, I was very blessed and fortunate that the person who taught me to properly handle a gun, and I didn't get it as a child even, this was as my adult, but I had a really good friend. He was actually a former military cop, and that was kind of his job. He had extensive firearms training. And so he taught my wife and I both proper ways to handle a gun, clean it, how to handle it, and all that. We got good training before I bought my first rifle, and that's, I feel like, how it is. It's in a case. It's far away from where our young son could get access to it, but yet easy enough that if someone broke into our house in the middle of the night, I will have the right to defend myself and life, and my family. I hope I never have to do that. Honestly, I really don't. Honestly, I just would rather go out and shoot for sport. Like, see how far away I can hit something and, you know, take some revenge out on some old garbage, you know? We used to do that. We used to go out to a field and we would, well, frankly, blow stuff up. Old dishwashers and stuff like that. We'd always clean up our mess and everything, but it was just a way to blow off steam. We did it responsibly. We knew exactly where we were. There was nothing further downrange from us, and we always took safety precautions. You know, everything from eyewear, hearing wear, making sure no one was around. We were not out there to kill animals or do anything like that, so we kept everything like that away, and we never had an issue. And it's a lot of fun, right? So I value that. But also I understand, like I said, from a more, we'll call it liberal standpoint, that background checks are necessary. We have to do something. There's some levels that I think we could safely say, yeah, this person's too mentally unstable. We have multiple psychiatrists who say this person should not have a firearm, and a judge orders that firearm be temporarily confiscated in an effort to try to keep that person from doing something to themselves or others with a firearm. I think that's actually responsible enough, but I could see where it could be easily abused. I really could. So it's not a one size fits all. And that's just one issue of many where an independent minded politician could come along and have an idea that doesn't necessarily line up with the Republican standpoint, and it doesn't necessarily align with a more progressive or liberal standpoint. And so that's kind of what today is all about. I know I spent a good chunk of the show talking about that, just that history. There's other things. So if you want to know, like, kind of my standpoint on a lot of issues, let's take healthcare. I actually I tend to lean more very liberal on healthcare, because the cost of healthcare for most people is outrageous. I don't know what the bill would have been from the hospital for my kidney transplant, but I could tell you it would have been excessively expensive. Way more than what I would make in a year. Probably 2 years. If not more. So how would an average person who didn't have coverage pay for something like that? They wouldn't. I'd just basically be stuck on dialysis, or if I couldn't afford dialysis, I wouldn't be able to get treatment at all. And I would die much sooner than need be, because the cost of treatment would have been too expensive here in the United States. Therefore, I do support strong regulations when it comes to costs. I am not saying that the government should 100% pay for medical, but we have to do something to regulate it. And that's where I typically lean very liberal. So I don't fit into the Republican standpoint, which says, let the free market do its job and costs will naturally go lower because there's going to be a lot of competition. I don't really buy that. We've been trying that system out for decades now, and it just doesn't work. Costs just keep going up in a private insurance mainly funded. Now, Medicare has a lot of pull when it comes to that. They basically say, and I got to talk to a nurse who used to work in claims, and they basically told me that Medicare has a certain cost based off of a certain code that they will pay. And that's what they pay. It doesn't matter. Like, I asked, like, oh, wow, this is because I had to spend a day in the ICU. And I said, oh, wow, this is going to be way more expensive than an average one. He's like, not really. We code it as a kidney transplant recovery, and Medicare pays us so much. It doesn't matter if you're in ICU or you're in a regular bed. And I'm like, really? It's like, yeah. It's like, huh. Makes you think, because they mandated the cost, and the hospitals have other requirements too. And I realize that adds cost to make those regulations happen. And it's a very imperfect system. It really is. But at the same time, if it wasn't there, if that Medicare system for people like me who are disabled was not there, I would not have been able to get my kidney transplant. Fact of life. So I think that it's super important that we truly look at an issue. So that brings me to what I found out today. I did a little bit of digging here today, and I found out something very interesting. The most interesting thing I found out is, did you know that Bernie Sanders is technically not a Democrat? I assumed he was. In my mind, I thought he was a Democrat. Let's take a look at this here real quick, shall we? So I was trying to adjust this too beforehand, and I apologize I didn't get to. So real quick, I'm going to adjust my display here, and so you guys can see my computer. There we go. So this site comes to us from, I'm going to scroll up here, Ballotpedia, and it basically lists pretty much Congress people and their positions and the election results, and all of that. And I wanted to find out all of the third parties or independents. And you can actually see Bernie Sanders here. He's listed as a independent. Now, he actually has a different sort of affiliate, and it's like progressive something. And I wish I had that. This one right here, yeah, New Progressive Party. But Bernie Sanders is registered as an actual independent here. But everybody assumes, because of his, well, frankly, more socialized idea, that he's a Democrat. Actually, he is not. But yet he is in office. He's probably the most well-known independent, then I guess you would say right now. If anybody knows of someone has more notoriety than Bernie Sanders, please let me know. Yeah, I think that's kind of the deal here. And so, let's see. But you can see that the most interesting thing here too is, look at this. Out of all the senators we have in the United States Congress, only 2 of them are considered independent, but one of them clearly leans more progressive. So it's pretty much a shoo-in for Democratic agenda, right? So, and then you can go down here, you can see all the state legislations, which is really interesting because you can see a lot from Puerto Rico. And you can have a popular Democratic Party as their technical ticket. Popular Democrat. So pretty much Democrats. So you can write that up. But I thought it was just really interesting. Puerto Rico having a lot of independents, but typically leaning more Democratic anyway. And you can see the Virgin Islands and all of that different thing. I just thought that was really interesting. Sorry. And this kind of blew my mind when you think about it. But typically, a lot of these independents, it looks like from the majority that I saw, typically lean more progressive or liberal. So basically, your Democratic agenda. I did a little bit of research here. Now, Wikipedia, like it or love it, do whatever you want. Third party, United States. One of the things that they were talking about, why we can't get more of them, more people elected, basically, is a winner-take-all, and then obviously the ballot access. So this theory is that the winner-take-all is kind of like the popular vote, right? That's how our elections work typically. Now some states do have a first, second, and third choice option, like who would you rather have most, who would you choose second? That way, if there's not more than 50% of the vote. Another thing here is ballot access laws. I know in Iowa specifically, and I'm sure around the country, if a candidate does not garner a specific percentage at primary time, then they are removed from the ballot. And so those are kind of the two biggest things that I saw. This article has a couple things talking about debate rules and stuff like that, where certain candidates aren't invited to certain debates unless they have a certain percentage based off like Quinnipiac and stuff like that. But largely it is that they don't want to give attention to somebody who's probably not going to win. Now, why do most third-party people run as independents? Well, one, they probably didn't win their primary party's vote, but they still think that they can win, and so they register as an independent or third party. And when they do that, a lot of times they know they're probably not going to win. That's typically been noted in several elections, but they're typically raising an issue with a specific party or specific issue regarding something that would be very popular to the American people. And so that's a lot of times why they're running. They want to force some sort of change. They know they're probably not going to win, but they still want to. I'm going to take this one step further. Think about it this way, guys. Let's say that someone like me ran, who has kind of different viewpoints on, different things. What would my presidency look like? Like, if I were a president, what would I do? Oh, and I've thought about that too. John Lofton running for president. That'd be cool. And if I won, Lord help us all. But nevertheless, I think my biggest policy would be probably healthcare, just because it has impacted me so much. So yeah, do I fall in that category where I would really run because of a specific issue? Probably healthcare would be my biggest one. I probably would put our military at second, so I'd be aligning there. But I would be at odds with like the more conservative viewpoint when it comes to healthcare. They probably wouldn't like that, and then it'd be very confusing. But I would say the large part of Americans probably lean very independent. They probably don't really have super strong opinions. But the problem is, my thought here is, you probably can't win unless you are a polarized figure, because even if you stir up controversy, you're still going to garner some support because, well, people love bad news. I don't know why, but people watch because of controversy. And then that gets you notoriety, and then you get support or you get haters, and you just pretty much divide. But that seems to be a winning recipe to how to win elections. You have to be very, very hard on one side. There is a stark difference between Donald Trump and President Biden. And so because of that stark differences, America, the common voter, who maybe like a lot of you guys doesn't focus on politics every day, has a clear kind of picture of what this person is and all of that. Their character and their personality and their profile is very identifiable. It's recognizable. And they pretty much have to get in line with what their party affiliate says. So Joe Biden, who once said that packing the Supreme Court is a boneheaded idea, I quote, now is considering it. Why? Because the Democratic overlords say that, hey, we should do this because Donald Trump had way too much influence on our previous Supreme Court nominees. Yeah, so that's kind of the idea here, is that it's all whatever's the flavor of the week. And if you're a part of this major party, you have to go along with what they say. I would love it if we could get a free-thinking individual in office who did not care about one particular party over another. They cared about the issues and values that mattered to them and was able to win and work with both parties on a bipartisan basis to actually bring about reasonable change. That's probably not going to happen. I'm probably very much wishful thinking, but I think that that's what it would look like, like if I were president, for example, because I would definitely call myself more of an independent, free-minded thinking, where I don't necessarily align with everything that Republicans say, and I don't necessarily in line with everything the Democrats say or progressives say. I have certain things that I just don't. I typically lean a little bit more conservative, but like I said, on healthcare and certain things like that, I typically lean more liberal. So it is kind of what it is, and that's kind of the idea here. But it's probably not going to happen. And the biggest reason I can tell you is obviously money. If you're part of a major political party, you can garner a lot of funding through super PACs. Super PACs typically do not support a lot of independents. It's just not how it is. There's no money there. You are literally getting small businesses or maybe a PAC or two if you're a very popular independent and you are really fighting an uphill battle. So that's kind of what I wanted to say. And and to bring this full circle here, because my time's running short. If you look at, Liz Cheney in this last week, I was reading this article on USA Today. I don't know why I just kind of found this. I'm not aligned with any particular news agency. Earlier in the week, I was reading something on the New York Post. It's kind of what made me kind of get onto this whole thing. But here we go. So USA Today, there was a couple things, and I'm going to read you this quote here from them. And it says, any leader, and this is them, of course, as you know in the news, that they're about to oust her from her leadership role in she's one of the most high-ranking individuals, and obviously she's the daughter of Dick Cheney. But this person said, any leader who is not focused on pushing back against the radical and dangerous Biden agenda needs to be replaced. And that was Republican Jim Banks. And so it's kind of like they're accusing her of not being focused. I think she is. She's just anti-Trump. She's come out very publicly against Donald Trump and his policies. And as far as I can tell, based off recent news media, the majority of the Republican Party still wants to hang on Donald Trump, probably for a 2024 re-election. Will it happen? My gut says no. My gut says that Donald Trump's train has came and left, and he's not. Even if he tried, I just don't see him getting reelected. We'd be in that same boat where if he did, Democrats would be trying to impeach him day one, and it's not good. I don't know why the Republicans are holding so tightly to Donald Trump. Yes, he did garner a lot. The vote this last time was super close. But in my opinion, I don't think it's going to be as close the next time if they try to put forth him as a candidate. And I think a lot of it is his speech. It's not necessarily his policies. I think it's his speech. He's belligerent. He just does not think things completely thoroughly before he gets on Twitter and tries to blow it up. Now, obviously, Facebook and Twitter both banned his accounts since the insertion back in January. So that's and honestly, I knew that was coming up for debate. Like within Facebook, they were going to announce if they were going to reinstate his account. I actually do not know if they did that or not. But it's not really related to what I was doing today. But anyway, in short, here, guys, I would encourage everybody to be a free thinker. Republican, Democrat, Independent, it doesn't matter. Think about the issue. Do not focus on what a particular politician or political pundit is pushing. Focus on what is right. And if you're like me and you're a Christian, focus on what furthers God's kingdom. And we can still use government to do that. Now, I want to emphasize too here real quick. Like I said, my time's really short. Just because you vote for liberal ideas or helping the needy and the poor and having the government fund that, remember, if you're a Christian, that is not you actually tithing. That is involuntary taxation that the government uses to help people, hopefully. How much of that money actually gets to people, hard to say. But it does not make it okay for you to substitute that for your own giving. If you are a Christian, you are called to be generous with people. It is a personal relationship. It is a voluntary giving, not just something that, I'm supportive of building more homeless camps and stuff like that. Now I'm willing to pay more taxes for that, because you are asking people who might not want to have that voluntary taxation to support that. So my time is short here. Again, my name is John Lofton here. I want to thank everybody for watching. Please tune in next week to Between the Lines. Please like, subscribe to this video. I am beyond thrilled to have you guys. Thank you so much. We will see you next week. God bless.